CyberTech worlds clash by outlaw realms. Chapter 10. Wonderland. Mr. and Mrs. Granger, please try not to worry yourselves too much, said a young medical technician as he spoke with Hermione Granger and her parents as Harry, Amy, and Ginny led her twin brothers, father and Sirius around for a quick look around some of the building. This is a new form of bone cancer unlike any we've seen before. It's very odd indeed. It seems to start on your marrow working its way out I suppose like I would imagine a trickle of liquid nitrogen into the bones would be. What? But that's bad, right? Mr. Granger asked worriedly before his daughter managed to comment. Mr. Granger was a pale man, like his daughter, while they both contrasted greatly to Mrs. Granger's dark skin. His hair was light brown and wispy as it thinned, and he had blue eyes, while his wife's hair was dark brown, near black and frizzy, cut to her neck, and she had dark hazel eyes like her daughter. It had come as a surprise to Mr. and Mrs. Granger that their daughter had requested that they hurry to CyberTech headquarters immediately, and even more surprising as they were led in straight away and into their medical facility B5. However, discovering their daughter had been taken on as a patient by some of the best doctors in the world because of this was incredible, and now they were both concerned. It could be something to do with magic, and Mr. Granger found himself so worried he would most likely end up blabbing if he was not careful. His wife was always so much calmer when it came to, well, everything. It had always frustrated him to have to explain to people why Hermione was white while her mother was black. Though, he was surprised the doctor hadn't brought it up. Most did, doctors included, but maybe Hermione already clued them in or something. It would be just like her to head things off like that. How hard was it for people to know that these things sometimes happened? It could happen completely the opposite way. Well, it was more common the other way. They were normally expecting half and half, but they both loved Hermione no matter what. Yes, I'm afraid so, the doctor agreed after a short pause where Mr. Granger started, as his mind tended to run wild and off tangent when worried, especially when it came to their only child, even when their only child was all grown up. His wife started him further as she took his hand and gave him a gentle smile before they returned their full attention to the doctor. However, the doctor quickly continued, we do have some experimental regeneration treatments and therapies we shall be using. Hopefully over the next few months the progression should have lessened. Anyway, we do not feel that she is in any immediate danger as its progress is slow at best, and we have caught it at a very early stage. Though, if it does have some kind of outside cause, any continued exposure will escalate its progression. Hopefully, Miss Granger, you shall, if all things go to plan, be fit and free of this within an estimated 12-month treatment period. Hermione nodded while looking both relieved and worried. But these treatments will work, right? The doctor nodded. I believe so, Miss Granger, as your illness is not very advanced and we've caught it in such early development. He spoke, reassuring her again with a soft smile. But nothing can be 100%, you should understand that. Hermione nodded her head while her mother wrapped her arms around her from where they sat side by side and gave her a motherly kiss on the cheek. May I ask, the doctor said slowly before carrying on at the nods he received, whether you have, in the last 6 months or so, been anywhere unusual as it may allow us to discover a source of your cancerous cells? Well. She began but trailed off and shook her head even though she was sure she could mention magical things, and from his look, Hermione was sure that was what the doctor was asking. Hermione, her mother interrupted in worried reprimand. He's a doctor and trying to help. I'm sure if you even have the smallest of ideas, you should tell him even if it's about you know what. I can't, Mum, she answered. I could get into some serious trouble, she said while biting her lower lip as she thought it over. She doubted the magical world could do anything to her with CyberTech backing her up, and the ministry didn't seem to care that Amy joined the Muggles. She's a witch, her father just blurted out. Hermione's parents had expected the doctor to look surprised and unbelieving, but he just nodded. I see, he nodded again. Mr. Avalon has been kind enough to get us a wealth of books on potions. The cures and treatments within are incredible, even the possibility to regrow limbs with medicine. We have started analyzing ingredients for potential synthesis, and use of their component parts for greater effect and efficiency, the possibility of putting them into more convenient uses. Therefore, I believe it is safe to inform me as it may help us devise a potential protection, so others won't have to suffer the bother of long treatments. It was 3 months ago when my boss asked me to head to a magical prison called Azkaban, Hermione began nervously. There was this man imprisoned and he promised information if he was placed in minimum security, so I was sent. Well, the prison has these ghouls guarding it. Their very presence sends a frozen cold through your bones and sucks the happiness out of the air. They can also kiss the soul out of people. But if it was from them, then what about the people working there? The doctor had just stared at her for a moment before his face turned into a look of disgust. You torture your criminals? He demanded, outraged. Hey, I don't like it any more than you, she retorted heatedly. I can't stop the corrupt jerks, and the fact without the criminals to feed on they'll run amok and start feeding on the emotions of innocent people. I see, he replied in thought. My apologies, Miss Granger, I was out of line as I had not all of the facts and let my emotions go unchecked. But it seems these creatures could be responsible for your current condition. If I may, could you tell me of their weaknesses? I'm sure like most creatures do, they have at least one, and maybe R&D could come up with something to deal with them. Hermione nodded. The only thing capable is a charm that focuses positive emotions to create a barrier, but I'm unsure whether it can destroy them or not. I suppose if it was strong enough. Also, eating chocolate after exposure dulls the effects away and brings back the warmth. Thank you. We'll have to get some books on these things, he muttered to himself as he typed away at his computer. These things sound dangerous, he finished up and turned back to Hermione and her parents. Sorry about that. I was just sending up the information to the head of research and development for evaluation. That's quite all right, thank you, Hermione said quietly. So, when is my first appointment? Oh, right, yes, let's see, he mumbled before getting to work on his computer. How is tomorrow afternoon at 2:30? Dr. McGinnis will be free to begin your treatment. That's fine, thank you, doctor. Say what? Asked Sirius as Harry was showing them a large garage space under the building, staring at 2 little plastic dog things, after a lot of other cool stuff, pouncing around, yipping happily with bright eyes and occasionally different types and colored fur which materialized on them, making them look almost real. They're dogs. Cyberpets, said Amy smugly and proudly as she glared at Sirius. They're really cute. I can't wait till they're working properly so I can get one. I was thinking about a kitty, but that won't be for a few years. Yip yip. One cried out, jumping up Sirius's leg. Well, I suppose they are kind of a crap that hurt, Sirius said angrily as he kicked one as it bit him, and he kicked it away and it ran to hide behind Ginny's legs. Ginny glared at him. Don't kick it, these things are both worth £5 million each unless you're going to pay to have it repaired. Sirius shook his hands in defense. Sorry, but it freaking bit me. It doesn't even have any teeth, Amy muttered while rolling her eyes. Maybe not, but it's still pinched, he complained. And now it's hiding from me. Harry, you said these things can't feel. It's just reacting to behavioral programming, he answered. I have yet to integrate any form of advanced AI or EPU systems as I'm unsure whether I should. Why not? Asked one of the twins. That would make them like Seraphite, which is totally cool. And if I built millions and they broke free of humans and decided to take over the world, who is going to stop them? You? He retorted smugly. They could do that. No, but I'm not sure about the ethical ramifications, he replied. They could potentially be classed as a sentient life form. Therefore, it stands to reason that some nutbar SJWs down the road will start calling it slavery. So, I guess close facsimiles is as close as one can get. But they are still brilliant, Arthur said, still awed by them as he watched them play and change and not having a clue what an SJW was, but knew from Harry's tone they were terribly frustrating people. Hermione, are you sure you'll be all right? Her father asked in worry as she led them back to the lobby. I'll be fine, Dad, she replied. Harry, Mr. Avalon has said I can stay here the night with Amanda and Ginny, so they'll be with me. I'll call you tomorrow, okay? They both sighed, but her mother gave her a big hug and a smile. I know you're old enough to look after yourself, but we still worry, her mother said while she gave her dad a quick hug. The magical world isn't safe, and after what you've just been saying about Dumbledore, I think you would be better off quitting your job. Perhaps you could get something here? You are very bright and know a lot about magic, and best friends with the boss's sister. Mum, Dad, Hermione sighed. Just go home and be careful, okay, and phone me when you get in. Okay, sweetie, bye. And her parents left. Hermione sighed and slipped back into the lift, but it moved without her offering a command. She had startled as she took note of the older woman in the lift with her. That was strange. The woman must have slipped in while she was saying her farewell to her parents. The woman had bright blonde hair down to her shoulders and dark blue eyes behind some stylish silver-framed glasses, with a long white coat with ID badge pinned on the left, open to show off her dark blue dress and huge cleavage, and shoes that Hermione knew would kill her to wear. Hermione caught the grimace at staring, but she couldn't help it from the way the woman's makeup was perfect, shadowing her eyes, and with red painted lips, nails, feet, and fingers, and she had flawless skin. So, you're Hermione Granger, the young woman who has made us aware of the possible need to exterminate a horde of soul-sucking demons? The woman suddenly asked with a smirk on her perfectly red lips. Hermione could only nod. Well, it's nice to meet you, I'm Cornelia Klein, head of R&D. Hermione gulped as this woman could play the part of Aphrodite, and she held her hand out to shake. Hermione nervously took the older woman's hand and Cornelia shook tight but wouldn't let go, as she licked her lips in a gently suggestive way like she could read minds or took great pleasure in making people around her squirm. She was obviously well aware of herself and liked to play games. She probably got on well with Ginny and Amy. I couldn't help but overhear, Cornelia began. Mainly because I was eavesdropping, after all the walls have ears, that your parents want you to quit your job, and to get a safer job away from some twisted old man. She paused with a wicked grin as she moved closer. They seem to think you're a bit on the clever side, said you know a lot about magic. I could use a girl like you, for more than just my Mano-related assistant. The position holds apprenticeships in many fields and even full schooling if you choose. I have plenty of staff that would love to have a witch as a part of their team in my department, myself included, and I'm the boss, so I guess if you were to accept my offer your butt is mine, figuratively speaking of course. Cornelia added the last few words with a wink and her tone sounded as if the last 4 words were the lie. Hermione could easily tell the woman liked to tease people, even though she didn't give off some kind of vibe that said she was either gay or at the least bisexual. Though, that really didn't matter to Hermione. Heck, she found out from the Order's attack that Ginny and Amy were bi or gay. She wasn't sure on that and it hadn't come up, but the woman was throwing her a huge opportunity. Not only was she offering her a job at CyberTech in R&D of all places, but in her own personal team. Hermione was brought out of her thoughts as the lift stopped and opened. She wasn't sure what floor it was, as she missed the announcement, but from what she could see from the security door, and the huge security offices either side of the metal detectors that looked a lot different compared to the ones on the medical floors, this place was extremely high security. She figured it had to be R&D, but there were no signs, and the floor, ceiling, and walls were a matte white, so clean you could likely eat off them with no worries. It reminded Hermione a bit of the medical floors, but felt dangerous, like she had a million eyes on her. There were holograms all throughout the room with every single angle possible showing both Hermione and Cornelia as they stood in the lift. Hermione blushed as one screen showed up Cornelia's dress to see her black knickers. Cornelia laughed as she saw why Hermione was suddenly blushing. "That's just Seraph showing off," she said as she leant over to whisper in Hermione's ear. "She really wants to impress you," she said looking down as Hermione was thankful she was wearing trousers. "Only Seraph's security protocols see every angle unless there's any reason to show other angles to anyone." Hermione gulped as she realized that this floor was likely one of the so-called maximum security departments. The black tech labs that every geek or nerd or genius on the planet dreamt of just looking around. "How about it?" Cornelia asked with a temptress's smile. "Just a little peek, to pique your curiosity," she said with a saucy come-hither gesture, as she began leaving the elevator backwards. Hermione slowly followed after the woman and damned her own blasted weakness as the elevator doors closed behind them, and Hermione found the blonde's hand snaking carefully into hers. "Welcome to Wonderland." "So, you're saying this board thing flies?" asked George, eyeing the board suspiciously. It had an appearance that was flat-bottomed with angled edges, wider at the front and thicker than a snowboard but shorter than a surfboard, but made out of alloy with rough grip tread on top and carbon fiber around the edges. Harry shrugged with a wide grin as he gestured around the monumental underground racetrack. "Well, the ceilings are quite high if you want to disprove me." George smirked. "Awesome, this will be cool," he declared as he looked around. He had thought above ground was huge. It was lucky they hadn't found the Gringotts tunnels while building this. However, George's sister grabbed his arm and glared at him. "This is a £2 billion piece of equipment. Are you sure you can afford it if you break it?" The young man's face paled at the thought as he looked to Harry and shook his head in defiance. "I think I'll take your word for it, mate. Anyway, I think it's about time we head on home." "I wish we didn't have to though, maybe we should stay at the shop tonight." His twin nodded in agreement. "Yeah, good idea, deal with Mum in the morning." "Boys," their father reprimanded. "I'll be joining you." The twins laughed while Sirius rolled his eyes. "At least I have my own place to hide out," he said. Hermione rode the elevator up to Harry's apartment with her mouth still open in awe. She had spent a few hours with Miss Klein being shown some of their less secret projects, and she could barely believe the stuff that they had come up with. It was like seeing an idea in science fiction and making it a reality, and that was not to mention that she had a little peek at some more magical-related products, and seeing that they were trying to reverse engineer the magic from flute travel was just a wowing experience, considering from what she saw, they weren't likely to fail, and if they succeeded, Hermione could see a lot of travel companies put out of business, or at least diversifying into portal travel. The middling thing was that Hermione was pretty sure that CyberTech R&D would make flute travel easier, safer, and a lot cleaner if they got rid of the need for a fire or fireplace. Hermione was near certain the only reason Miss Klein showed her that project was to destroy all of her nerdy defenses, as getting science to figure out such a magical secret would net the researchers and scientists immortality in the history books. Miss Klein had let her leave asking that she take a little time to think about the offer. Hermione could picture all of the things she could build, the possibility to cross over that taboo border, well taboo to the magical world. To mix science and magic, to perhaps understand the universe better than they already did. And perhaps discover a secret that had plagued mage for centuries. How and why? What was magic and how and why have they got it, and what was the difference between a Muggle-born and their Muggle parents or Muggle siblings? It was all so tempting, but Hermione realized what they wanted was for her to not only break magical law, but betray the magical world. If she did, she could do so much good for Muggles and magic. If she didn't, they could possibly find someone else and she would foolishly miss out on such a chance to expand her knowledge, and maybe someday be in a history book. "Hey, Hermione." She was interrupted and looked up to see the elevator doors wide open, showing the inside of a huge apartment with Ginny curled up on the couch with a holographic screen hovering in front of her face, and a cup of cocoa in her hands. She had a yellow bracelet on her wrist that seemed to have a soft corona of light skimming the surface. Hermione felt her cheeks light up slightly, as Ginny was only wearing a really short tee that just barely hid her panties, and still Hermione caught a flash of blue as the girl stared at her through the transparent screen. "Are you just going to stay in there all day daydreaming, or are you coming in? Amy left you some PJs you can borrow in the bathroom down the hall. Just follow the yellow ball floating in the air." Hermione was startled as a yellow ball of light appeared out of nowhere and realized it was the holographic emitters stationed all over the building. She supposed it was a handy little trick for directing people to certain offices without other staff members needing to waste their time, and she felt foolish that she had missed the muggles advancing so fast while she had been hidden away in the magical world. Oh, okay, thanks Ginny, she replied nervously, hoping Amanda didn't give her some PJs that showed her off too much. "But what's with that bracelet? I've seen loads of people wearing them and..." "They're portable hollow frequencers, or PHFs. Huh?" Hermione asked, feeling stupid for once asking Ginny of all things about muggle stuff. Ginny laughed. "That's what Amy and I said," she replied. "They're so the keyboard and screen can track my movements more efficiently while using the Seraph network, or as some people call it, the S-net. But don't call it the Skynet," she takes offense to that movie making out AI being idiots. "Wait, is that from Terminator?" Ginny shrugged. Yeah, I think so." "Okay," Hermione said thoughtfully before shrugging. "Anyway, where is Amanda, and Harry?" she asked in wonder. "Amy's in our room taking a bath," she answered while shrugging, and Hermione didn't miss our room. "And Harry is off in his secret lab everybody knows exists somewhere, but don't know where, doing something or other. Everyone nicknamed it Eden because we all know that it contains nothing but forbidden fruit." Hermione started. "Does he know everybody knows about it?" she asked as she wondered mildly what she would have to do to get invited into Eden. Ginny laughed while rolling her eyes. "Of course, he does. There isn't anything within this building that he doesn't know if he wants to. We just all play ignorant. It's like a conspiracy theory. It's fun. I wouldn't be surprised if he was calling it Eden now too." "Okay," Hermione replied nervously. "Well, I'm going to use the bathroom. I'll see you later." Ginny nodded as she returned her attention to the screen. "Okay, take your time." Hermione began following the glow before she paused and stared back at Ginny. "What are you doing?" she asked, curiosity getting the best of her. Ginny looked back, smiling. She shrugged. "Nothing much. I was just looking for a birthday gift for Luna," she answered. "It's her birthday in a few weeks and Amy and I haven't found her anything yet, so I was just browsing the net." Did I say that all correct, like a normal muggle would understand?" "Actually, I'm impressed," Hermione replied, amused. "It actually seems weird coming from you though. Well, see you in a bit," she said as she continued following the ball of yellow light to the bathroom. Hermione was pleased as she exited the bathroom, if you could call it that, as the tub was huge with water jets and everything. It was no wonder Amy and Ginny never wanted to leave. The PJs Amanda gave her were simple white and red checkered cotton trousers and top that fit comfortably on her. It was easy finding the lounge and had to hold in a groan as Amy's PJs were just as bad as Ginny's lack of proper PJs. Amy's consisted of a too small white sleeveless vest not only showing off her toned tummy, but her nipples could easily be seen through the top, it was so tight. Then to top things off, her shorts were so short they could almost be called panty briefs, showing off her long slender legs. Amanda was lying across the same couch as Ginny, curled up and lying across it with her bare feet being absently fondled by Ginny in her lap, as they both chatted about things Luna might like for her birthday, and smaller windows popped up and disappeared next to the larger ones, probably the computer giving her suggestions. Hermione sighed quietly to herself while rolling her eyes. Amanda and Ginny had always been very close and comfortable, touching and hugging whenever and however they wanted. She had always been a bit envious of the kind of caring friendship they had with each other. "Oh, hey Hermione," Amanda said as she looked up with a smile. "I see they fit all right. I wasn't too sure. I know how conservative you can be in your jammy choices, but you always look cutely comfy anyway," she said with a teasing smile. "Ah, yeah, well thanks," Hermione replied, embarrassed and pleased to get a compliment. "Come over," Amanda continued. "We're just looking for something to get Luna for her birthday," she said, pointing to the comfy-looking chair next to them. "You got any ideas?" she asked as Hermione took a seat and shook her head. "I know, it's so hard when you have a whole planet full of shops in the living room. If only the magical world would get a clue. Anyway, what did the doctor say?" "Oh, well they're going to be using a new treatment using some kind of machine," she replied with a smile. "They said I'll have to continue treatment for about a year, but it should hopefully regress completely. They say it could be a side effect of Dementor exposure." "Damn, that could be true," said Ginny worried. "You went to Azkaban once recently for Dumbledore, didn't you?" Hermione nodded. "Yeah, I know it's crazy. They said some people might just be highly susceptible to the things cold." "Well, at least you're getting treatment," said Amanda in relief. "But what was taking you so long?" "Oh, well," she began blushing. I was offered a job by the head of research and development, to work in a department everyone seems to call Wonderland." Both girls chimed out laughing before Hermione could say more. "You should take it," Amanda said giggly. "But watch yourself with Cornelia or she'll have you in her office. I heard about this poor fifth-year girl that got separated from her class field trip a couple days ago, and Cornelia got hold of her in an empty office. Well, let's just say she probably had more fun as class trips have restricted access. I'm certain Cornelia's access was unrestricted." Hermione blushed brightly. "Don't be silly. I'm sure it's just a silly rumor someone thought it funny to start. I see all, hear all, and know all. Are you calling me a liar?" Seraph's voice suddenly startled her as it came from all around. "Ah, no, but she can't go around seducing 15-year-old girls on school trips." "Blah," Seraph mumbled. "I can prove it if Harry lets me. I still have it on file for, blackmail material." "You told us you kept it because it's too hot to delete," Amanda pointed out smugly. Hey, don't grass on me," she whinged. The girl was actually 18, in sixth form, anyway, so perfectly legal, and I have scrubbed the file. But just think of the secrets I have of yours. Both girls paled before Amanda looked smug. "You can't tell her as some are Harry's too." "Indeed, but not all of them, only a few," she retorted giggling. Okay, no grassing you out to Hermione, happy?" Ginny complained. "Very," she agreed, smug. The British Prime Minister was minding his own business in his office, hoping no one barged in and caught him slacking off, as he had an exhausting day and found himself glad his appointment at CyberTech was cancelled. It had come to his attention by some old man, or should he say, old wizard, that CyberTech was aware of the magical world and supposedly took their savior, Harry Avalon's own sister, from their grasp, and now his technology was proving to be too much for them to handle. In addition, the old man Dumbledore was continually asking who the Cyber Knight was. Well, after the old man gave him the lowdown on the Cyber Knight, he replied that he didn't know, and after laughing Dumbledore out of his office for thinking he would have any say over a company as powerful as CyberTech, he thought on it. His first and foremost thoughts were Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. However, the description was wrong, and he would have been made aware of Iron Man being in the country, as he may have shown up to some code blues they've had recently, as he liked to stick his nose into what was not his business. The Prime Minister was kind of glad for Captain Britain dealing with them, no matter how annoyingly corny and into being a comic book superhero he was. However, this left the Prime Minister looking at CyberTech as his main suspect and sighed. What was it with these rich geniuses and creating battle armor? Though, that boy racer side of him could barely wait to see what the armor looked like. Maybe he should have asked the old fool whether he had a picture. However, before he began to dwell on the stupid war too much that was hidden from them but affected them nonetheless, he heard a soft buzzing sound and quickly opened his right drawer. Pulling out a remote control with a red button, he pushed it. He was startled to see a twin sword pointing down and crossing in the middle, and across a shield. He felt he should recognize that coat. It was on the screen that came out of the wall instead of one of his many advisors or perhaps the President of the United States. Knock knock. He heard the door as he stared at the screen when he heard a mechanicalized voice. Open the door and accept the package. It said no more as the door once more knocked and the Prime Minister quickly opened the door to see his PA holding a small box wrapped in brown paper and took it with a thanks before returning to his desk and staring at the screen. Open it, the voice spoke commandingly, and the minister found himself doing just that to find a weird, well, it looked like some kind of mini-futuristic engine from a steampunk genre. However, he did take comfort in the CyberTech logo on the device. Switch it on. He was commanded once more. He looked and soon found the on-off switch and flicked it. It happened instantly as he heard a startled yelp. He turned to see the painting he knew was connected to the magical world show an expression of shock as the man in the painting squirmed before the whole thing sizzled before falling off the wall with a clank to the floor, and breaking. It appears, Minister, we are free to talk. I'm afraid that I have no trust for the magical community as a governing faction. Me either, he agreed with a sigh of relief as Harry Avalon appeared on his screen sitting back in a comfy-looking leather chair. What exactly is this thing? He asked, gesturing to the engine. It's a portable distortion field generator. It will keep any magical form of transport from entering number 10 for a while. This one has also been attuned to interfere with some enchantments such as the one on the painting. In most cases it destroys the magic. However, the generator will only last a few more hours before the battery dies, so I shall be installing them to cover Downing Street, and I shall have several of my security forces best protecting non-mage government officials from magical personnel, even if they claim to be a government. As far as I know, the British people have never recognized their governing body, and they seem more incompetent than, well, yes, very well, the Prime Minister agreed, wondering whether he did something stupid recently, and even though he banned some really weird and racist training in schools and government departments, and the teaching of it in schools and government-funded institutions such as colleges and universities, and though many in the opposition government opposed it, as bigoted and fascist, the people voted him and his party in with such majority that they could actually get things done. And so they did what the people voted them in to do, and were trying to keep all of their promises, which was difficult when a lot of the mainstream was whinging at you constantly. However, he was certain Harry Avalon was on his side there, so quickly shrugged the thought off. Well, anyway, I would presume this is not all of what you wish to discuss, as you could have delegated this engine and a briefing on this magical people. You presume correctly, Prime Minister, Harry Avalon agreed. This is rather important, and I need for you to fully grasp what we're going to be dealing with from here on out, so I figured you would be much more receptive to me personally, and it couldn't wait. You might want to get comfortable. The Prime Minister nodded as he quickly moved to his personal coffee machine, and Harry waited for him to finish and seat himself behind his desk before the meeting began. To be continued. Hey, once again, another chapter complete. Please hit the like, comment, and subscribe for the next chapter, but remember to hit that bell icon to receive notifications, and have a grand day.